Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner. In our top story, Israel has expressed shock and sympathy in the wake of last week's mass shooting in Las Vegas. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu released a statement saying that the people of Israel stand shoulder to shoulder with the American people in mourning and in sorrow. Our hearts go out to the victims, families, and we wish a speedy recovery to the wounded. Israel's President Reuven Rivlin immediately sent a letter of condolence to his American counterpart, Donald Trump, saying the people of Israel joined him in sending their deepest sympathy to the United States following the attack, which claimed the lives of so many innocent people and injured so very many more. In a further sign of Israeli solidarity with their strongest ally, the Tel Aviv municipality was lit up with the colors of the American flag.
Interpol has chosen to reward terror rather than fight it. The largest international police organization held a secret vote which resulted in granting full membership to the Palestinian Authority. Both Israel and the United States opposed this unilateral move, which they said could harm peace efforts. Jerusalem expressed concern the PA will attempt to manipulate Interpol into unlawfully arresting Israeli citizens. After the vote, Washington quickly released a statement declaring that it will not honor Palestinian warrants issued through Interpol. Ramallah attempted to defend its position, saying it plans to use the organization to detain alleged Palestinian criminals, which happens to include the top rival of PA leader Mahmoud Abbas.
Arab children continue to be the victims of Palestinian propaganda and incitement to violence. A recent study found that new textbooks used at schools funded by the United Nations Relief and Works Agency reflect both extreme anti-Jewish and anti-Israel sentiments. The Center for Near East Policy Research, the Simon Wiesenthal Center, and the Middle East Forum examined 150 books for 1st through 12th graders, revealing three fundamental themes: the delegitimization, demonization, and indoctrination to violence against Israelis. Maps printed in the UNRWA text omitted all reference to the Jewish state, and in attempts to rewrite thousands of years of history, Jewish holy sites such as Jerusalem's Western Wall and the Tomb of Patriarchs in Hebron were categorized as purely Islamist. One of the researchers proclaimed that UNRWA is betraying its moral obligation by letting the PA prepare Palestinian children for a future war with Israel.
Hundreds of neo-Nazis descended on the city of Gothenburg, Sweden, as Jews were observing Yom Kippur. The openly anti-Semitic Nordic resistance movement had planned to march past a synagogue on the holiest day in Judaism, but a last-minute court injunction forced the group to change its route. Nevertheless, the racist parade did become violent. Swedish police reported rock throwing and rioting, which resulted in the arrest of more than 50 people.
The European Union recently hosted a known terrorist at its recent Convention on Human Rights. Laila Khaled was a notorious member of a Palestinian terror group when she hijacked an American airliner in 1969 and was arrested a year later during one of 4 simultaneous Arab hijackings while she was armed with grenades. Khaled was released by Britain as part of a hostage exchange less than a month later, and she's been living freely ever since. Even though the EU has blacklisted the terror group that Khaled belonged to, the Union still allowed her to deliver an address on the role of women in the war against Israel, referred to as a popular resistance.
Israel has given UNESCO a replica of the Arch of Titus. This famous landmark depicts Roman soldiers carrying off the treasures of the Second Temple after destroying it and exiling the Jewish people in the 1st century of the Common Era. Israeli leaders felt it was an appropriate gift in response to UNESCO's repeated denial of Jewish ties to Jerusalem. The United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization has recently passed a series of resolutions denying the Jewish connection to Jewish holy sites, including the Western Wall and the Temple Mount. Israeli officials hope that the replica will be displayed in UNESCO's headquarters as historical proof that Jews have been in Jerusalem for thousands of years.
Israel's top-ranked tennis player chose to quit the Wuhan Open mid-match so that he could observe the Yom Kippur holy day. Dudi Sela, who ranks 77th in the world for men's singles tennis, asked that his match be rescheduled, but his request was reportedly denied. The Israeli athlete tried to play out the game in time, but when he realized that he couldn't finish before the start of the fast, he withdrew. and not only forfeited his place in the match, but also the $34,000 in prize money. Meanwhile, Israeli basketball star Omri Caspi, who plays for the American professional Golden State Warriors, also sat out his team's preseason opener due to his own observance of the holiest day on the Jewish calendar.
Security officials in the United Kingdom are turning to the Jewish state for help in the wake of a wave of deadly Islamic terror attacks that have rocked the UK. The Assistant Police Commissioner for London traveled to the Holy Land seeking Israel's expertise in the area of public security. Speaking at a counterterrorism conference in Herzliya, Alistair Sutherland said he will be sending delegations of British police officers to Israel to learn effective technologies and methods used to combat terror.
Parliamentarians from governments around the world visited Jerusalem last week to affirm their support for the Jewish state. The Israel Allies Foundation hosted 27 members of parliament from 16 countries for its annual Chairman's Conference, which is held during the Jewish holiday of Sukkot. The group commemorated 100 years since the Balfour Declaration, which designated Israel as the homeland of the Jewish people. And of course, they also marked the 50th anniversary of the reunification of Jerusalem. Josh Reinstein, the president of the Israel Allies Foundation, said that men and women of faith in parliaments around the world are standing with Israel like never before. The Israel Allies Foundation is hosting this policy conference so that we can harness that political support and turn it into real political action.
More than 6,000 Christians from 100 nations have come up to Jerusalem for the Feast of Tabernacles. The event, sponsored by the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem, is the largest solidarity mission to the Jewish state. Organizers believe the festival will pump as much as $20 million into the Israeli economy. This year marks the 50-year Jubilee anniversary of the reunification of Jerusalem. The event is dedicated to reaffirming Christian support for a unified Jerusalem under Israeli sovereignty. One of the highlights of the Feast of Tabernacles is the march through the Holy City, when thousands of Christians and Jews walk together, waving Israeli flags in a show of solidarity with Israel.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here on a beautiful sunny day in our rooftop studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is R.A. Green. He's the author of the upcoming book, My Israel Trail. R.A., thanks for being on the show.
It's a pleasure, Josh. Thanks for having me.
R.A., you have many different hats. You work in the high-tech sector. You work with different politicians and in the media. But something you've done recently is very unique. You've actually walked from the tip of the south to the tip of the north of Israel and got to see all the land of Israel. Tell our viewers a little about that.
Well, it's true, Josh, and it was an amazing, just almost overwhelming, uplifting experience. I'm sure your viewers in America are familiar with the Appalachian Trail, or now with Cheryl Strange's book, Wild, and the movie about the Pacific Crest Trail. And viewers in Europe will be familiar with the Pilgrim's Trail in Spain and Portugal. Few people are actually familiar with what's called the Israel Trail, which is, as you said, it's about 1,000 kilometers, over 600 miles from Eilat in the south through the Negev Desert up through the Galilee, and the population centers on the coastal plain, ending on the border with Lebanon in the north. And it was an amazing way to both reconnect with my Jewish identity, our history, the people and the land of Israel. It was really something.
Now, coming up in the next few months, you'll be launching a book about the experience, talking about your connection to the land. What is the book all about?
Well, the truth is I'd always wanted to hike the Israel Trail. And I did parts of it every now and then with kids or with friends or with kids' friends or friends of kids. And unfortunately, I went through a difficult, challenging period in my life. Ended up divorced, which I hadn't really anticipated, and that, as many others I'm sure have experienced, was a very difficult period. And I decided I'm going to hike the trail to both give myself some time. As a friend of mine said, I sent him a picture of me meditating on a mountaintop in the Negev Desert. He wrote me back saying, R.A., this whole trip is one long meditation. And so in the end, it was really powerful as an experience for me in helping me get over my divorce and literally moving ahead with my life. And so for me, I wrote the book to describe both elements of that experience, both the reconnecting with our roots, reconnecting to the ancestral homeland of the Jewish people here in the land of Israel, and also how the hike itself helped me to meet the challenges of moving on with my life, getting over my divorce and the like.
Now you go all over the world and you speak and make the case for Israel. How does this experience now walking the land of Israel help you make the case for Israel in the international community?
Well, it's interesting. At this point, I think there's some fundamental misunderstandings. The three myths of the madness of the Middle East, as I call them, and I speak a lot about them, and writing the book helped to consolidate a number of different issues which I think we all can incorporate both in our understanding of the reality here on the ground, but also the way that we express and articulate that, whether we're speaking with a bunch of friends or coworkers, or whether, as I do often, as you say, whether it's in synagogues or churches or on college campuses or in communities, giving talks which help to focus people's understanding. If you'd like, I can share with you those three fundamental myths or myth perceptions.
Please go into them. Yeah, let's hear.
So, number one, it's a myth, and it's promulgated predominantly through the media, parroted by many of our, unfortunately, political leaders on both sides, or any side of the political spectrum, that the Palestinian leadership, Mahmoud Abbas and all the others, are somehow moderate, as the term is often used. Now, this isn't to say that they might not have reasonable points to make in a political discussion or argument. But let's face it, a regime which imprisons people for criticizing the heads of that regime on Facebook, a regime which allows or even encourages and glorifies murderous terrorists who carry out acts of violence against civilians, a regime that isn't interested in and has explicitly said they are unwilling to compromise, to negotiate, to try and tolerate the concept of living in peace with their neighbors. These are not descriptions of a moderate. The second myth is that it's the nefarious settlements, those Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria, which somehow are the primary obstacle to peace in the Middle East. And the third myth, which leads directly from this, is the myth that this is somehow a territorial or even a national conflict. This is neither of those things, but it's a fact that this is an ideological, civilizational struggle, not a territorial one. And it's that issue which was clarified for me over and over again on my hike through the Israel Trail because of the Arab and Muslim and Christians and others who I met who understood that peace will come when the Arab and Muslim leadership allow their people to accept the Jews' return to our ancestral homeland and therefore the legitimacy of the establishment of the nation state of the Jewish people, the state of Israel. That will be the real entry to real peace in this region, and that was brought home to me again and again as I hiked the land of Israel and spoke to the incredible diversity of the people who are part and parcel of our state.
All right, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
Oh, well, the one main message is come visit and enjoy and see for yourself the modern miracle of the reestablishment of Jewish sovereignty in the land of Israel. We've returned to our ancestral homeland as the indigenous people, and we all together need to reassert the legitimacy of Israel, the founding of Israel, in all of our interactions. So come visit, be in touch with me at my website. I'll be speaking in November, October, around the States and also in Europe, and I'd be delighted to answer any questions that people might have and to welcome you for a visit to our ancestral homeland and the reestablished sovereign nation state of the Jewish people here in Israel.
Thank you, Ari, for being on the show, and thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, the return to Zion with Keren Hayesod.
Hello and welcome to the Return to Zion with Keren Hayesod. I'm Eliezer Moody Sandberg, World Chairman of Keren HaYesod, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. Today, Ukrainian Jews are in great danger as they live in war-torn Ukraine. Help us fulfill biblical prophecy by bringing our brothers and sisters back home to safety. God bless you from Jerusalem.
I will even gather you from the peoples and assemble you out of the countries where ye have been scattered, and I will give you the land of Israel. Ezekiel 11:17.
In eastern Ukraine, over the past 2.5 years, a brutal and cruel war has been raging. A savage war without clearly defined front lines. Against this backdrop, the Jews of eastern Ukraine have been in peril. The donors of Keren HaYesod from around the world have heeded the call and have come to their rescue. Our supporters realize that the window of opportunity to rescue these Jews may slam shut.
Lift up your eyes and look around. All your children gather and come to you. Isaiah 49:18.
We are here to support, all of us, the Jewish people who return to their homeland, to support each other.
These Jews must be extracted from burning towns, from raging battles, and from the chaos of eastern Ukraine, and brought back to their ancient homeland.
Я решила приехать в Израиль, потому что я последние полгода почувствовала свои еврейские корни и поняла, что я не могу больше находиться в своей стране, и я должна вернуться на свою историческую родину.
Корни говорят сами о себе, было рвение, плюс хотелось, чтобы сын узнал.
Воссоединение с семьей, наша семья здесь сейчас, папа, мама, сестра.
Большое волнение, но как-то у меня сразу, как мы прилетели, какое-то ощущение было правильности нашего выбора.
Для будущего нашего ребенка в первую очередь.
Keren HaYesod's friends around the world have been stepping forward to enable this life-saving effort to continue. Many thousands have already been rescued, yet many thousands still remain in eastern Ukraine. They must be brought out now. Through Keren HaYesod and our partner, the Jewish Agency, our dreams, our prayers, and our hopes are coming together in fulfillment of the biblical prophecy that foresaw the return of the Jewish people to their ancestral homeland.
Behold, I will bring them from the north country and gather them from the uttermost parts of the earth. A great company shall they return hither. Jeremiah 31:7.
The situation is highly unpredictable, and we must not miss this chance to help. We cannot let them down. All possible resources must be mobilized in this effort. You too can play your part in this crucial mission as Keren HaYesod provides these Jews in distress with new lives in Israel. Join us. We must not forsake them in their time of need.
Let's bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, call us at 1-800-505-1665 or visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
Peace is a paramount Israeli strategic objective. We want peace with our neighbors, all of our neighbors, including with the Palestinians. And Israel will always welcome peace efforts by American leaders. President Trump's efforts are particularly welcome. President Trump, so far in his peace efforts, has rectified what we regard as several mistakes that were made by his predecessors in office. It began with the internationalization of the peace process back in 2002 with the roadmap, which created the quartet. It meant that not only the United States would be the mediator, but also the United Nations, the European Union, and the Russians. With that many cooks, there's no way that that broth could not be spoiled. Previous American presidents also placed the settlement issue front and center and made it the core of the conflict, which it emphatically is not. There was a conflict between Israeli and Arabs for 50 years before the first settlement was built. And Israeli offers to the Palestinians of statehood in the year 2000 and 2008 showed that settlements were not an impediment to peace. And indeed, today, all Israeli settlements together account for something less than 2% of Judea and Samaria of the West Bank. They're not an impediment to peace. And thirdly, previous American presidents have placed the outcome of the negotiations in advance of the negotiations themselves. They came out and said that the outcome of the negotiations will be the creation of a Palestinian state that will live side by side with Israel in peace. Now, if you're a Palestinian leader and you know the outcome of negotiations already, how then can you go into negotiations and make concessions to the Israelis? How do you explain that to your people when you've already won the negotiations? So what President Trump has done is, first of all, take back American ownership of the peace process. No more UN, no more Russians. President Trump has put the settlement issue back where it belongs, not at the forefront of the negotiations. And President Trump has not said what the outcome of the negotiations will be, as long as the outcome is acceptable to both sides. That, to my mind, is a very good beginning for a successful peace process.
Lift up your eyes and look around. All your children gather and come to you. The biblical prophecy is unfolding right before our very eyes. The people of Israel are returning to the Promised Land after 2,000 years of exile. But millions of Jews are still longing to come home. Anti-Semitism threatens many of the Jews. We must rescue them before the window of opportunity slams shut. Bless Israel by supporting Karen Hayesod United Israel Appeal, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. Together, we can fulfill the prophecy of the Bible.
Let us bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, call us at 1-800-505-1665 or visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
Please stay tuned for the ICEJ report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
Israel. It is the heart of the Middle East, the most important country in all of human history, and the single most influential place that's impacted your life. It was the home of the prophets, the location that once held the Holy of Holies, and the birthplace of the Gospels. The connection between this land and your heart is undeniable, but you can also be a blessing to this nation by partnering with the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem. Now is an exciting time to be a part of what God is doing in Israel. Biblical prophecy is being fulfilled before our eyes. The Jewish people are returning to their homeland from the four corners of the earth, and life has returned to the land itself. And the Holy Spirit has been moving on the heart of Christians, just like you, to be a part, and ICEJ has been there. For more than 35 years, ICEJ has been the direct connection to the land of Israel for Christians all around the world. And together, we are helping the needy, providing shelter for Holocaust survivors, integrating new immigrants, supporting minorities, mentoring youth at risk, and have actively helped 120,000 Jews come home to Israel. These are just a few of the people groups ICEJ is impacting. And with a reach of over 170 nations, the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem has become a leading voice of Christian support and friendship to the Jewish people. So get involved and be a blessing to the nation and the people of Israel. The International Christian Embassy Jerusalem. Your embassy, your voice. Join us today.
The name Jesus is lifted high, lifted high, lifted high. The name of Jesus is lifted. Oh, in this land. Oh, we declare the name of Jesus is lifted high, lifted high, lifted high. Oh, the name of Jesus is lifted high in this land.
El nombre de Cristo levantaré en la tierra.
El nombre de Cristo levantaré
en la tierra. En Señor, tu nombre es poderoso. El nombre.
No other name but the name of Jesus. 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 No other name but the name. Everybody say no other name. No other name can heal us. No other name can free us. No other name can deliver. No other name. No other name but the name of Jesus. No other name but the name. That name is holy. That name is mighty. That name is hallowed. That name is powerful. That name is beautiful. No other name but Jesus. No other name but the name of Jesus. The name of Jesus is lifted high, lifted high, lifted high. The name of Jesus is lifted high. Hey, yes, hey. The name of Jesus is lifted high, lifted high, lifted high. The name of Jesus is lifted high.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.